evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Chamber of the Wraith. My name is Brian, and today I kind of want to do something a little bit different today. I have a video that is at least quasi-planned, where I go over 10 buffs and mechanics changes I'd like to see in Mortal Kombat 11 overall. And some of them are character-specific, yeah, but others are more universal mechanics-based things. But as a sort of build-up to that, I've decided at the last minute, I kind of want to highlight every character and change how every character goes. So, go through and how I would change each character. Now, a few things in mind. One, I am not a competitive player, developer, or expert at Mortal Kombat 11 down to the finest of frames. Not by a fucking long shot! Not by a friggin' long shot. Just because I know percentages down to the thousandth of a percentage point when it comes to buffs, it doesn't mean that I'm any good at the game. At best, I'm just okay. But that doesn't mean I can't toss around a few ideas and a few new ideas to make things a little more interesting and crazy. And that actually leads to my next point. Some of these buffs, nerfs, or adjustments might be a bit bonkers. So, if you think they're bonkers, don't be afraid to let me know, because there's a chance I probably even know how bonkers they are, and at the same time, there's a chance that I might not know how bonkers a change actually is. So if you know it, you can tell me. But we're actually going to start in a little bit of an interesting way. Normally I would start top to bottom, left to right, and, you know, go through everybody. But I think it would be more worth it to go in detail with random characters just to spice things up. And if I get enough comments for a particular character, I think I could do something with that. And the final thing before I go into this preamble is basically every character is on the table for any level of changes. I mean gear move requirement changes, to simple frame data adjustments, to getting brand spanking new moves. And a good example of a character that is going to get all three of those is Shao Kahn, our first subject. Now, it's funny, Shao Kahn was supposed to be the pre-order bonus for this game. He was the guy that you wanted to, oh shit, that's Shao Kahn as a playable character? Give me, please! You know, and then you would pre-order for it. While there were concerns that doing this would mean that you would pre-order a character and they would become busted, the last two times NetherRealm did a pre-order bonus character for Mortal Kombat X and Injustice 2, the characters were mid-tier at best. Goro and Darkseid were not top 5 characters in their respective games. Which, by the way, Darkseid is also pretty, you know, weird about that, because it's fucking Darkseid. Why is he terrible? Lore reasons aside, you know what I mean? But I think Shao Kahn epitomizes that the most, because a lot of people know that his buttons are not that great. There are many Shao Kahn players that I commend that actually do a pretty good job with him. But, you know, a little bit of a boost wouldn't kill him. So, I'm actually going to start with We'll talk about him later. Let's talk about Shao Kahn's moves and how I would adjust them. And by moves, I mean custom moves. The first thing I would do is that, well, right now, nothing. All of them are worth one slot, and that's perfectly fine. However, if there were anything that I would personally like to change, is I would actually like to replace or add an air version of the spear that allows Shao Kahn to throw his spear in the air, and it would count towards his 1-2 grab, crush, and blow. This adds a new special move, and it really doesn't do that much to add to Shao Kahn, but it's a really cool way to get that crushing blow, especially if you like to jump a lot. Which is funny, because in MK9 Shao Kahn couldn't actually jump, even though he was a boss character. And another thing I would like to see changed is I think some adjustments to Shao Kahn's Wrathhammer moves. And what I mean by that is, I would like to see a distance-based change, just like the Joker's crowbar run in Injustice 2, but slightly different, where if the hammer travels a certain distance, it breaks armor. And that seems a little bit silly, but if you set up Seeking Wrathhammer with a down 2 and they break away, and the Seeking Wrathhammer hits, there's your combo. Alternately, give Dark Priest a second property that allows the hammer to break armor always. Yes, always. Sounds a little bonkers, I know, but Shao Kahn's current niche in the game is armor-breaking master. So let's accelerate that a little bit. Now let's actually take a look at the moves themselves that are currently in the game. Our first order of business is taking a look at the complaint that you've probably heard many Shao Kahn players complain about. I certainly have heard of at least 2 instances, probably more, where, you know, people have complained about or noted that this move needs to be better. And I, for one, am in agreement. That is forward 3-4 grab at any point during the string. You'd probably know this one as either Last Breath or You Will Never Win. And this string, on its own, is fairly damaging. Right? You land the full thing, you get almost 20%. You throw the opponent, you get a full throw's worth of damage, especially considering that now throws do 130. Right? And then this is off of a 10-frame mid with really good range, so you can go for a combo, as an example. Which, one thing that you should know about Shao Kahn is that his damage is nothing to sneeze at. So, even on the ground, no jumping, no crushing blow. I took you to the corner with 33%. That was a third of your health gone. And if we factor in a jump in, that's 35%. And of course, we haven't, just to wrap things up, we haven't touched this particular string's crushing blow, which does obscene amounts of damage. That's 44%. And that is easy. Shao Kahn can get almost double the amount of damage that this particular combo gets without the crushing blow, with meter, resources, and armor breaks and all of that. Shao Kahn is a killing machine when it comes to damage. But outside of damage and a few things here or there, that's really all Shao Kahn has. For instance, let's take a look at Last Breath again. It's minus 12, or the You Will Never Win bit. Goes from minus 8 to minus 12. And yes, you can throw them out of this. But here's the thing, right? If the opponent is neutral ducking, they slip right underneath it if they let go of block. Which means uppercut, crushing blow, punish for a full combo. So, what does Shao Kahn get? At the most, maybe 20% if he connects the full string, or if he gets the crushing blow, between 37 and 42%, depending on if he had the right taunt on, because you need that taunt in order to get that crushing blow, which we'll get to. But again, 20% as opposed to, if I just block this, look at that, I whiffed it and I got more damage. Or how about this? If I'm a zoner, look at that, full screen 30%. Or just to throw salt in the wound. What can I do at the end there? Okay, yeah. Let's try that. Dang it. Okay, so the point still exists, right? That no matter what, let's say I even don't get the crushing blow. Is it 1, 3? Oh, right. 3, 4. Okay. Okay, and I dropped it at the end. But still, that was no crushing blow. Let's keep it simple. There, 35%, give or take. 35% if I read that right. Yes, that cost me 2 bars, but that's still more damage. And again, if I don't have the crushing blow, I already basically match him in terms of damage with certain strengths. Or at the very least, if I can match his throw, right? And that is the thing to keep in mind with Shao Kahn in this particular string. Look at that, Sindel did a punish, very easy, on the ground, no meter spent in any way, shape, or form, and she basically matched Shao Kahn's string in terms of damage. Just by blocking it, right? And she can get even more damage with certain attacks. Let's just spend a single bar then, just to make it even more worth it. See, 29%. Pardon the pun, and I hate to hammer the point home, but this string needs some serious love. And the biggest problems that I've seen people complain with, and I agree, is that this string has 2 flawless block gaps, has 2 flawless block opportunities in it, at the beginning and in the middle. And remember, 19 frames, already minus 12, so if you flawless block it, you don't even need to spend meter, you can just go for a raw punish. And if it's flawless blocked, he doesn't get a special cancel, and he can't finish the string. So, first off, I would make this string neutral on block. I would make you will never win part neutral on block. I wouldn't necessarily make it plus on block, because that seems silly, but I'd make it neutral to -2. So you land this big stomp, and you're neutral. You could still flawless block it, by the way. But I think unless the flawless block gap is already its natural gap, I would shorten that a little bit. And I would make it so that the Shao Kahn player can still get the throw. Not a special move cancel, just the throw. Because that way, if the opponent, let's say, does manage to flawless block, if the opponent does manage to flawless block this string, let's pretend that flawless block, I can at least get 130 on reaction for finishing the string. And this still gives Sindel a chance to try and uppercut punish me, right? Hypothetical example there. But there's a little more I think we can do with Shao Kahn. Let's take a look at another string. Conquer All. This string is +6 on block. It's actually quite comparable to Scarlet's 4/4. But the only trouble is that while it's high mid, and it's always been high mid, and it's +6, which is really good, again, there's a flawless block gap in there. Now, Shao Kahn is still +6, but the opponent can absolutely still use a flawless block attack in order to get Shao Kahn off of them, if they so desire. And Conquer All cannot be special canceled, unlike Scarlet's, which is one comparison I've seen and I personally agree with. This needs to be special cancelable. And not just the first kick. The second kick also should be special cancelable. Hell, make it special cancelable on special moves, which will be relatively pertinent if Shao Kahn ever gets a command grab, which he should, hint, hint. But that's besides the point. The Conquer All needs to be better in order to match it, and I personally think one other string that I think should be made better is a combination of Die and his Fatal Blow. Now, they kind of fixed the Fatal Blow so that it's more consistent to connect. But why, oh friggin' why, are both of these in the mid-25s in activation? Like, that is more damage than the throw, but you can block it. Flawless block gap in the middle, flawless block gap at the end as well, by the way. And it is -5, so it's alright. But I'm of the mindset that at least die needs to be 20 frames. Needs to be just that little bit faster to be more able to be used consistently in combos. And of course, getting a similar adjustment to You Suck would be nice. Or change the hitboxes so it doesn't ever miss when it swings. Even if it anti-airs the hell out of itself. Because right now there's too many opportunities for this thing to miss, even after the fix. And now let's take a look at any special moves that we might be able to augment. Right now, in his base kit, Shao Kahn Spear, it's the angle, yes. But why on God's green earth does this thing miss at point blank range? I personally think that Merciless Spear's animation needs to change. It being a mid-projectile is fine, but the animation needs to be tweaked, or the angle that the spear flies needs to change ever so slightly so that it will always hit the opponent at point-blank range, just because the amount of times that you go for spear and get punished for it, despite it being a mid that the opponent can stand to avoid, is a little ridiculous. Although personally, I would change it to be, pretend that's the hammer throw, to have the same sort of angle as this hammer throw, where it, at the very least, it hits the opponent. And I think one thing that would make it particularly cool is that, let's say, if this ends a combo, then it can have its same drops the opponent. But there's actually an augment that allows Shao Kahn to stun the opponent for up to 3 times longer than normal with the spear throw. Why don't we take a little bit from that and make it, let's say, only 50% longer? Because how long is the opponent on the, like, it's plus 17, right? Because of the fact that they're knocked down. But Shao Kahn over there should recover quickly enough to get his hammer back and thus be active. And maybe if he does it at close range, he can maybe get a back 1 or back 2 or forward 3 at the right range, especially helpful if the opponent is not staggered, and then you could go for a combo. You know what I mean? That would be a really helpful thing to give Shao Kahn a terrifying projectile game, both up close and from afar, because this is still a really nice mid-projectile. But at closer range, this acting as a combo starter for meterless would be awesome, in my personal opinion. Just don't make this thing scale like hell. Up Wrath Hammer, I think it's fine, as it is. Although I would add a very far. If I could, I would add a very far, because we have close, mid, and then if we could, let's have a very far that reaches full screen from the animation. Just a personal thing, just to make things work. Right now there isn't anything else, but we have to move on to another variation in order to cover some more changes I would like to see. No. Well, actually, no. This one has all the buffs, right? Now, as I had discussed before, Dark Priest should make all of Shao Kahn's hammer attacks break armor. Now that seems a little bit crazy, but bear in mind that it takes 2 seconds to activate this. And a 20% and a 10% buff to all hammer attacks is hardly worth that cost. Hell, you could even have an amplify option where you would sacrifice the armor break properties for more damage breaking and cut the startup time in half, allowing Shao Kahn to get in with the hammer quickly. That's just Dark Priest. That's the one that actually got buffed, because this used to be even slower. Ridicule and Humiliate, his iconic taunts, never did. These things never got changed. Outside of the fact that I'm reasonably sure that they actually got slightly weaker. I'm actually pretty sure that Humiliate got weaker, but I'm not willing to say for sure because I'm probably mistaken. I wouldn't be surprised. But these taunts on their own are actually fairly solid tools. What do they do? Well, first off, you get Ridicule off. Oh, it was the opponent's taunt. Okay. So the opponent will do 50% less damage to Shao Kahn if they're under the effect of Ridicule. While Humiliate will buff Shao Kahn's damage by 25% while it is active, meaning that this one crushing blow gets obscene amounts of damage on its own. 40% is nothing to sneeze at. Now imagine if you were able to combo into it from Spear, for instance. I'm doing it without the buff to take into account damage decay. That's a lot of damage, but for Shao Kahn, that is actually not that bad. Because remember, Shao Kahn gets ridiculous damage. But these taunts take way too long. Are you really gonna let Shao Kahn sit there for 3 seconds in order to get this buff? For context, let's start this from full screen. For context, I'm gonna have Sindel walk in and uppercut as soon as I start the Ridicule and Humiliate. Ready? So I had just enough time to block that. But let's change that. Let's change it to that string. Still punished me. She could walk up to me from full screen and basically trade the buff. She gets debuffed in exchange for a combo. Which, remember, with Sindel, especially in this variation, is no trouble at all. Like here, I'll do a simple example, okay? So, do you see what I mean? She was able to hit me out of it. You suck. And on whiff, and yes, I got the damage decrease off, but that was just in time. What I recommend for Shao Kahn's buffs, or for Shao Kahn's Ridicule and Humiliate, is I want them to be armored. Straight up armored, and have a repulse effect. It does no damage, and but it resets the neutral if the opponent is within touching distance of Shao Kahn. So if they're here, they get something like that. Actually, that's actually even a little bit too much. How far does this put them? Perfect. Okay, so I get the taunt off, bam, and this distance is what I want it to be. So the opponent is not even remotely far enough away for Shao Kahn to completely exploit with his long-range normals and whatnot. But at the same time, it would also allow Shao Kahn to, get some punishes. His, this attack, which should be 8 frames, not 9, for whatever reason, would be able to potentially reach and start combos. You could go for this mix-up, especially after that particular buff and what have you. But I would still cut the startup time in half. Make it 90 frames combined because it's armored. It's an armored thing that can't be interrupted outside of an armor break attack, which would give certain armor breaks more use, by the way, i.e. Sub-Zero's forward 4, Jackie Briggs's dive, that kind of thing. And it would allow Shao Kahn to actually get at least one of his damn taunts off, because the repulse at close range is enough to allow Shao Kahn to try for the crushing blow. But if he gets too eager, of course, the opponent could punish him. But if he waits a little bit and goes on the defensive, waits for his opportunity, there you go. That's probably the most bonkers one I've seen to give the taunts armor, but with 90 frames combined, you know, not 90 frames of startup and 94 frames of recovery, 90 frames combined, and that slight little repulse effect, I think these moves would actually see some use in the first place. And finally, there is one last adjustment I would like to make that I'm actually not entirely sure needs to be made before we go into the final portion, which is that command grab I alluded to. And that final thing is the armor thing, is the hammer thing. Now, I mentioned this before, but the Joker in Injustice 2 has an unblockable after it reaches a certain distance, about half screen. But Shao Kahn is known for having unblockable attacks and for doing big damage. I mean, look at MK9 Shao Kahn. So I think from certain distances, this attack should be unblockable. But it transitions into a high. It will begin to act like a high, so you can duck the attack, giving the spear, which will always be a mid, a reason to use, right? So at full screen, the opponent thinks they can block a projectile, they can't. But if it is past half screen, they will instead take unblockable damage. I'm thinking about doing this instead of having the hammer throws be armor breakers at that range, because what would be the point of that? And it would make Wrathhammer in particular really interesting, because maybe you'd finally see this crushing blow outside of a fluke. You could actually kind of go for this as a mix-up, because you see this, and the opponent thinks, okay, I'm safe to go in. But if Shao Kahn is just close enough, just past the halfway point where it becomes a true mid rather than a high unblockable, mollywop for damage. Actually, does that combo? No, it doesn't. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I was just curious about that. And for Air Wrathhammer, it would only get that property at the apex of the jump. Any lower, and it will not be unblockable, because it would be a mid. So you have to be as high as you can in the jump, and the opponent will probably see that coming and just move in. And Seeking Wrathhammer, we can even do the opposite, because look at how long it takes for the attack to actually hit. And it's still considered a high. So unless it's at full screen, let's say about here, it becomes that high unblockable that I mentioned before. And that's how I would change Shao Kahn overall, with one key exception that we need to go to another menu for. Mm-hmm. Now, I mentioned this before. I alluded to this before. But there are two more changes that I think I would actually like to see on Shao Kahn. And these are more mechanical changes than anything else. Shao Kahn is a bit of an oddity. He's a big body character with big hits, but he's not a command grab character, which I find really odd, because NetherRealm loves the command grabs. Obviously they do. They gave one to Nightwolf, which was a really odd decision, but one I can live with. Hell, they gave one to Liu Kang, who has never had a command grab before. But I find it personally a little bit strange that Shao Kahn, of all characters, doesn't have a proper command grab, because he was the one that I think made the most amount of sense to have a command grab alongside when she was announced Shiva, you know, being a Shao Kahn. He's big, he's mighty, he's got giant meaty arms. If Ferritor could be a grappler because of their giant meaty arms and the big guy, why aren't Shao Kahn's giant meaty arms used in command grabs? And I think it would make a really cool 2-slot ability if we gave him a command grab. And here's how I think that particular command grab would go. It would be a half circle back motion, because I don't like down, back, forward options. Good God, NetherRealm, please stop doing those for command grabs. Or, even better, we could see the very first full circle command grab. Like a full 360, just like Zangief in Street Fighter. But that would have to make this command grab obscenely good, and we're not going to do that. Instead, we're actually going to give him this command grab, which will be 2 slots, a 2-slot ability that will not conflict with anything, but it will do really good damage. I'm thinking 20% meterless, raw, on its own, 20%. Because it's Shao Kahn, he needs to hurt a lot. And the idea would be that Shao Kahn would grab the opponent, choke them, slam them down, grab the opponent, and ragdoll them twice to keep the corner position. So that's the idea. It would be a very strong command grab, but the only thing broken about it would be damage. There are command grabs that do more damage and have overall better effects, but raw damage is Shao Kahn's game, and I want to make that true with this Emperor Slam command grab. And then you could amplify it when the opponent's leg is grabbed to add 2 more slams to add more damage. To make this a ridiculously strong ender. It wouldn't have a crushing blow, and it'll never launch or anything like that, but those are examples. And secondly, I need to go back into the menu, into the training mode, because I want to show you what I think was the most baffling change that they've ever done. And I mean that in the terms of, not that it didn't make sense, but more so, why did they change it the way that they did? So, at the very start of Mortal Kombat 11, before the first balance patch, which I believe came out with Shang Tsung, every character in the game had 1,000 health. Unless they had some sort of augment thing, which I'm pretty sure back in those days they didn't, because all of the augments were move-based, currency-based, and AI-based and whatnot. But I have the health values displayed at the top, because 5 characters got their health values changed. Sonya, Cassie, and Jackie got reduced to 950 health. They basically have 95% health. Now, characters with slightly less health are actually not that unusual in some fighting games. For instance, Akuma in Street Fighter has about 90% health when compared to Ryu, and Chun-Li has 95%. And it makes sense that some characters would have bigger health pools. Zangief, for instance, had, if I remember correctly, 1,300 health in one of the games that he was in, which was a lot. But moves in general in that game just hurt a lot, in Street Fighter, just hurt a lot more. Imagine a command grab that just does 20% raw, which you don't really see in this game outside of buffs, which is why I wanted Shao Kahn to have that really strong command grab. However, you'll probably notice that Kotal Kahn and Shao Kahn seem to have had their health value switched. Because while it makes sense for Kotal Kahn to be a big boy character with big boy health, why did he end up with 10% more health and Shao Kahn only end up with 5% more? He only ended up with enough health to survive a single back 2 from another Shao Kahn. So instead of this killing you in 20 hits, this kills you in 21. Whereas this kills Kotal in 22. And this is actually enough where after the aftermath throw adjustment to make all throws 13%, I'm not gonna go through it all, but Kotal Kahn can survive 1 more throw than any other character in the game. So that's 3, 4, right? So at 4, Kotal is just above half. Whereas if I were, and this is without crushing blows, this is just normal throws. Whereas if Shao Kahn gets thrown around like this, now he's at exactly half, meaning that that 8 throws would be exactly enough to kill him. Whereas Kotal Kahn would survive 1 more throw. Now this is okay for Kotal Kahn. It's inexcusable that Shao Kahn basically has nothing in the terms of a health buff when he originally had double the health of every character in Mortal Kombat 9. Now I'm not suggesting we give him 2,000 health, that would be broken, even by my standards. But I do suggest that instead of 1050, Shao Kahn should get 1,200 health. That's 1,200 health. That's a lot, yes, but it's not unmanageable, and right now, that would be the start of a really strong buff train for Shao Kahn to make him better. Giving him more health than Kotal Kahn also makes sense, considering the fact that Kotal Kahn gets a healing buff that is universal, regardless of what version you use. And because he can heal in at least one different way, in some variations he can actually heal in 2 separate ways, it makes sense that he's beefy, but not as beefy as Shao Kahn. And those are my final changes that I want to see for Shao Kahn. Tune in next time as we take a look at the most controversial character in Mortal Kombat 11, Twindale. Don't forget to be awesome, and I'll see you guys on the other side.